Hi, I'm Dr. Adrienne, and today we're going to talk about adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing with negative numbers and negative and positive numbers together. So I'm going to share my screen and give you a presentation that you'll be able to come back to and review what we talked about here today. So we're going to use number lines to do this to make it easier to understand what we do with negative numbers when we add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So we want to be able to do those calculations confidently. We're going to use a number line to make that easier to understand. And that's because when we go forward, we want to be able to accurately use negative numbers when we're solving equations. So the rules for adding two numbers, if they have the same sign, is just add the numbers. 1 plus 1 equals 2. The same is true when we have -3 plus -6. That's going to give us -9. 3 plus 6 is 9. They're both negative, and so it's going to be -9. If the numbers have different signs, then you subtract the smaller number, here it's 5, from the larger number, and the sign of what you get when you add those two will be the same as the larger number. Here we've got -12, and it has a negative sign. We subtract 4 from 12, we get 8, but 12 is the larger number, and so the answer is going to be -8. That still seems like a lot of rules, and so I want to try to do it on a number line so that it makes a little bit more sense. So when we take that +6 and we take 5 hops, if we take hops to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it takes us down to 1. Here, -12, we start at -12 and we take 4 hops to the right because 4 is positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that takes us to -8. Negative numbers are a complicated idea. I think of it as a hole or a debt. So if you had a hole that you took 100 shovelfuls of dirt out of, you'd have to put 100 shovelfuls back in just to get to level, just to get to zero. If you had a debt, let's say you owe somebody $50, you get paid and you get paid $51. If you pay off that debt, you only have $1 left because you were already $50 in the hole. And so that's how I think about negative numbers, but we also need rules for using them together. So when we're subtracting two negative numbers, if we subtract 3, so we subtract a -3, we're actually adding 3. Let's look at that on the number line. There's 8. It's a +8. And we're subtracting -3. So we're actually adding. We're going to go off our number line here. 1, 2, 3, and we'll be here at 11. Let's look at it with negative numbers. So if we start at -3 and we subtract another 5, there's -3. So it's 3 less than 0. And we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, more to the left. Moving to the left is negative, moving to the right is positive. That takes us to -8. So I think multiplying with negative and positive numbers is actually the easiest because a negative cancels out a negative. So if it's a positive times a positive, 6 times 8, you get a positive number, 48. If it's a negative times a negative, -2 times -7, it's still a positive. The negatives cancel each other out. A positive times a negative will be negative. 3 times -5 is -15. And a negative times a positive is going to be a negative. -4 times 9 is -36. Here's another example. -8 times -2, +16. And the same is true of division. -20 divided by -10 is going to give you a positive number there. but the multiplication seems the easiest to me. So pay very close attention to the signs because a negative times a negative is going to cancel each other out. Multiplication, if we're still thinking about using that number line, is like adding over and over again. So if I add 2 dogs the first time, and then I add 2 more dogs, that's the second time. If I add 2 more dogs, that's the third time. I add 2 more dogs. I had 2 dogs, and I hopped 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 times 4 is 8. That's another way of thinking about doing multiplication. So that was with positive numbers. And we can see those positive numbers here on the number line, adding over and over again. If we subtract, then we're moving to the left to take away dogs. If I had 8 dogs and I added -2, I would take 2 of those dogs away and I'd be left with 6. So the rules for dividing are the same as multiplying. That's why I slashed out multiplying. A positive divided by a positive is going to give you a positive. A positive divided by a negative is going to give you a negative. A positive divided by a negative is going to give you a negative. And a negative divided by a negative is going to give you a positive again. Same set of rules as with multiplying. So if we just before we get into the negative numbers, if we look at that as hops on the number line, if I say, okay, I've got a total of 10 sisters here, and I have 2 hops, 1, 2, what is the group that I hop? Well, I hop 5 sisters. So 10 divided by 2 equals 5. If I do it the other way, here we have -10, and I have positive 2 hops, then I have 2 groups of -5. Why are they -5? Because they're on the left from 0. So let me review those rules again, same rules that you just saw. They have the same signs, just add the numbers. If they have different signs, then your answer is going to be the same sign as the bigger number. With subtracting, if you say negative a negative, it's really positive. So 8 minus a -3 is really 8 plus 3. Multiplying, that one's my favorite because the negative and the negative cancel each other out for a positive. And positive times positive will be a positive. Same thing with division. A negative number divided by a negative number is going to give you a positive number. And there are the division rules, which are the same as the multiplication rules. So yay you, first step towards confidently working with negative and positive numbers. Hooray, congratulations.